we are now recording this webinar. Okay, so everything's being recorded. So if we go too fast or you miss something, you can always review it on your own time. We're going to be sending out an email later on. We're doing this a little bit early webinar, especially for our European users. So bonjour, guten Tag, wherever you are in Europe. I think most of the people on this webinar are European. We're also doing another webinar later on this afternoon for our American and early morning risers in Asia. So yeah, that's pretty much it. I'm going to put the link for this page, the Curve Editor page, in the chat window. Okay, any links that will be provided will be put in the chat window as well. All right. So basically, what I'm going to do, I'm going to make Chris here, if I can find him. There we go. I'm going to make Chris a presenter, and we're going to just go from there. So let's see. Let me just get in here. So Chris, can you hear me there?
Yes.
All right.
Okay.
Awesome.
Can you guys hear me?
We are connected. I see a dude decked out in leather on the screen. So I assume that means you're ready to go.
Okay, yeah, sure. All right.
All right, take it
Thank
away.
you, Kai.
Yep.
All right, I'm super excited to be here once more. And this time we're going to talk about the Curve Editor and have a little fun with it. I thought it would be cool to have an actual practical exercise and see how we put that Curve Editor in action. So this is a little something that I put together. Notice how precise his movements are, and I will show you how those traps were created, as well as how the motions were synchronized to those traps to avoid the traps, basically. All right, so we'll divide this into 3 parts, and part 1 would be creating the traps. So I will show you how you can use the Curve Editor to really exploit the motion and the weight of these traps so they look more believable. Then after that, in part 2, we'll go ahead and string together some motions for the character. And basically the thought process on how you create this short animation that I created, because if you're working from a library, you got to have a little foresight on how you want your animation to happen, because obviously the motions are already preset, so they're not custom motions from perception neuron, for example. So you have to have a little bit of a think ahead a little bit, string the motions together and foresee, okay, I want this trap to happen here and this trap to happen there. And then in part 3, I'll show you how I synchronize all those motions between the traps and the characters, and how I went back and forth between tweaking the traps and then tweaking the motion of the character so that it completely avoids the traps. All right, so let's get going because we got a ton of stuff to cover. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and go into iClone here. And as you can see here, we already have some of the traps already here, but not all of them are animated. So I'm going to show you how I animate those guys. So we have the ring of fire, we have the axe. This is what I call the grinder, and this is a smasher. So let's go one by one, and let's see how fast we can go on these guys. We might not reach all of them because of time constraint, but I'll do my best to get this going. So the first thing we run into is the axe, right? So it's pretty simple. Notice this axe is actually from the Monster Workshop Volume 1, and I just attached 2 axes together here. So it's 2-piece axe here, 1 and 2. So they're just attached together. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to switch my workspace. So Control 2 gives you the default workspace, and Control 3 takes you to the animation workspace. The same thing, you can go through here, workspace, and you can go from standard, Control 2, animation, Control 3. I usually like to work in this mode when I do animation, because I have my timeline here, and then eventually I will have my curve editor here. So it's good to have both at the same time. Now I'm going to go ahead and select loop over here, and I'm going to get rid of the play bar by clicking on this icon over here. So this way we have a little bit more real estate to work with. And now I'm going to go into the timeline, and by pressing Alt and the mouse wheel, I can zoom in and out. And what I want to do is get the in and out markers so that we can start playing with loops. So I'm going to go ahead and move the slider here. And now notice that wherever the slider is, and you use the Alt mouse wheel, that's exactly where it's going to center and zoom in and out from. So this is a good way to move through the timeline. You just move the slider, and then you move the Alt mouse wheel to zoom in and center to that where that slider is. So here we are at 120. Let's see, right there. All right. So let's go ahead and select our guy here. It's already selected, and we're going to make this active so we see it in the time track, in the timeline. And we have the transform here. So let's go ahead and start putting some keyframes. Now, I want this. I'm going to go ahead and press E for rotation. And notice here that I actually have snap angle on. So if you don't know how to get to that, you press Control P, and you have angle snap right there. And again, Control E turns it on and off, and I want this to be 45 degrees at a time when I do a rotation. So this makes it a lot easier to get the correct angles. So I'm going to go ahead and rotate this to this position here. Now I'm going to go all the way to this frame over here, 120, and I'm going to add a keyframe by pressing this little button here. So now basically nothing happens because it's not moving. So at frame 60 here, I'm going to tell it to rotate to the other side. So I'm going to go ahead and rotate, rotate, rotate. There we go. So now if I press the space bar here, we have a nice little action going on back and forth, a nice little loop. Now, however, this swinging action here is very even. So because when you create a keyframe now, instead of being linear, which would make it look mechanical, you have a smooth function for every time you create a keyframe. And you can find out what kind of keyframe you have if you go to your projects tab. If you go all the way to the bottom here, Control Shift P here, and you can see in here, okay, so there we go, I actually had it on. And this will show you also the key settings over there. So let's see, make sure that we got this thing here. I apologize. Actually, it was just in preferences, not in projects. So in here, in default keys, is set to auto, and this will create a very, very smooth motion here. So what we want is feel the weight of the acceleration of the axe. So because this axe is pretty huge, so we want the momentum to really slow down when it goes up and really start to accelerate when it goes down. So you could do two ways here. You can right click here and use one of the transition curve presets here. So what we can do is do a smooth motion here, and this will actually make it accelerate a little bit more. And then let's apply this again in here, another smooth over here. So notice here that it does go a little bit faster downwards, and it does slow down a little bit, but not as much as you may want to. So you do have some control in here to increase the strength as well. But every time you do this, you can do this while the animation is playing. And this is where the curve editor comes in, and it gives you tremendous advantage over just the timeline. So what I'm going to do is you can access actually the curve editor several ways. You can go to plugins, curve editor, and load it that way. Or you can just right click on the object and go curve editor and go transformation. Or you can click on an actual key here and right click on the key and go curve editor and open up the curve editor like that. All right, so here we have our curve editor, and you will notice that if I do an out of it, there's nothing going on in position. So this is not because we only animated the rotation. So let's go to rotation, and since we're dealing with just one axis rotation, just the Y, let's just select the Y and do an out of it for that. So we can clearly see here the let me move this out of the way. I don't know if you guys can see that or not. There is a little menu there covering the keys. All right, so in here, I'm going to go ahead and play with this acceleration. So what we can do here is, what I want to make sure is that when it comes down over here, the axe stays down. So, however, we want to slow down when it starts coming down, and then notice that when we get to this key, we want it to slow down again. Now we already have some transitions going on in here. So let's go ahead and remove those transitions here by applying the auto smooth here. And let's go ahead and play with the actual curve's tension. Now, you can do that by selecting the handles here. And let's set the keys actually to default here, because right now, again, we do have, I'm going to right click here, go to curve, default. All right. So we can see the tangents here, the handles. You can turn the handles on and off this way. And what we're going to do here is, I'm going to select this guy over here, and I am going to press shift so I can lock it in time, and I'm going to accelerate to about there. And I'm going to select this key right here, and I'm going to do the same thing and extend it to about there, and I'm going to select this key over there and extend this to about there. All right, so now you will notice that as I do this, notice how much faster the acceleration happens, how much slower it does. So this gives you a feel of weight, and this is what we want. We want imminent danger as the guy walks through those traps. Okay, so that's one of the traps. The next one is going to be a 360 loop here. So I'm going to go ahead and make sure this one is selected as well in the track. So it's there now. And let's go ahead and go to first frame over here again. And let's make sure this one is selected so it doesn't get confusing. And now what I'm going to do here is I am going to rotate this full 360. So where I'm going to go ahead and go to frame 120 in here and make it go a full rotation 360 here. So, and because I have this set to angle snap, makes it quite easy to do so. So now if we go to rotation here for Y and do an auto fit, you will notice we have our spin. Okay, so we want to actually do the same thing we did to the other one, where we want a nice acceleration as it comes down. And to do this, again, all we got to do is extend this handle. So I'm going to press shift and move it to the side like so. About there, that's good. Keep it there. And now I'm going to select this guy over here and extend it about there. Now, what we want is at frame 60 for the axe to go down. So what we, and notice that now we have the acceleration, but it's kind of pausing a little too much at the top of the loop. To fix this, all I'm going to do here is, and notice now I can do this while the animation is playing, which is very cool. I can move the handles here and tweak the animation so that I can actually see. So there is no stopping as it goes along. Okay, so we got that one down. So that's the way that one was created. So now let's go ahead and go to the smasher here. And this is another fun one, super easy to do as well. Let's go ahead and select this guy from at this node here. Let's make sure we see it on the track. And deselect that. Okay, so this is our cylinder. Make sure that we have just the cylinder selected there. And we do an auto fit here. Now, you will notice that this guy, let's make sure that there was I moved it here by mistake there. There we go. Let's remove that key. All right, so it's up here. We're going to go to frame 120. And we're going to create another key there for our smasher. And then at frame 60, again, I am going to just translate this down. Super easy, right? So smash right there. Let's go right See it from this angle right there. Okay, so again, super smooth motion, very mechanical though. So what we're going to do here is apply a transition in here. Now let's auto fit these keys in there, and let's go to just zoom in and auto fit the curve for the acceleration of the motion of on Z. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to select this key and apply one of the transition curve presets, and I'm going to select this one, bounce at the end. Now this, by just doing this, you already can feel the weight of that. If that falls on top of you, I feel very sorry for you. So looks very cool, super easy to do. So you can do this also inside the timeline editor. However, the advantage of having the curve editor over just the timeline is that you can actually see the peaks and valleys of where this is happening. So you can totally adjust, and I will show you this in part 3, the curve so that the character, when he jumps in front of it, he stops right in front of just when it comes down, and we'll time that perfectly. So it was super easy. And another cool thing that you can do here is actually, if you select the curves here, just the curve, you can actually something that you cannot do with the timeline alone is you can bake the curve. So now you can actually tweak the acceleration of each key here, where something that you cannot do in the timeline alone. So this is another advantage of having the curve editor there, which is super cool. All right, so we got the traps here. We'll get more if we have time in the Q&A. I'll explain how I did this little guy. But let's move on to the next part, which is the character. Let's go to part 2. So I'm going to go ahead and load part 2 here. All right, so as this is loading, I'm going to go ahead and show you guys what we're going to tackle here. So like I said, you have to have a little bit of foresight for knowing what you wanted to happen here in the animation, because again, we're using pre-animated clips. So I knew I wanted him to go forward without any fear, and I knew that I wanted him to not just go forward, but also have some lateral motion as well. So one key to know all of this is know your motion packs. And we're going to use the Assassin motion pack. So right now we have our character here. He's not moving at all. He's just standing there. So let's go ahead and add some motion to him. So I'm going to go ahead and press F4 to bring in my content tab. And I'm going to dock it in here so I can have it right there with the rest of my tabs. And I'm going to go to animation tab, and I already have my assassin pack here. And in mobility, I'm going to just give him a very easy and simple standing idle. All right, so let's give him that. One very important key here is to have the character selected. There we go. All right, so let's give him some idle time. And okay, you will notice here that our idle for our character, let's go ahead and make sure that we see it in the time track here, is about 300 and something frames. So that's about 5 seconds. So 5 seconds of idle is a little too much. So let's go ahead and make it just as like a second and a half. Let's give him 90 frames. And I am going to right click on the clip and break it. So, and get this out of here, just delete the second part because we don't need it. All right, now I'm going to select the clip and press the tab key. This will snap it to the end of the clip. This is a very, very useful key there to go back and forth. If you press Shift Tab, actually takes you to the beginning of the clip, and press Tab again, it will take you to the end. And now I'm going to go ahead and give it a very cool motion here. Let's see. It's the Dodge Walk C. There we go. I like this motion because he just nonchalant, just turns around and keeps on walking like nothing's happening. So the way that I incorporated here in our video here is he's just going through the traps again, like he doesn't care. He just goes there, avoids the obstacles like nothing. So he is very confident about his moves. All right, so what we're going to do next is we are going to, as soon as he spins around, we are going to make him duck. And for that, we are going to use the crouch motion. So the key to mixing the crouch motion to this is look at the pivoting point on the ball of that foot. So I'm banking on this because this is gonna make the transition look very smooth. So I'm gonna go ahead and zoom in by pressing Alt and the mouse wheel here, and I'm going to right click on my clip and go break. I'm gonna break it right there and delete this. Now I'm going to go ahead and select the clip and press the tab again to go to the end of that clip, and I am going to go to an idle crouch. This will give me the bending that I'm looking for to avoid that fire ring. So let's go ahead and load that fire ring as well here. Let's go to my custom props here, and let's go to my ring of fire. Man, I was having so much fun when I was putting this together. It shouldn't be legal. All right, so here we go. So we have our ring of fire here, and so we want him to dodge and come down. Now notice that the ring still hits him, but this is the part where we synchronize the motion to the prop. So I just kept going back and forth between those two things in order to, just have a nice smooth transition between the two of them. So we'll do this in part 3, so don't worry about that. And okay, so this works pretty good. And then what I did is notice that as he crouches down, he goes a little bit down and then goes a little bit back up again in the motion. So, but I want this to happen faster. So what I'm going to do here as well is I'm going to right click on this clip. I'm going to break it, and I am going to delete the second part. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to time stretch this to make it smaller. To time stretch, you go from loop to speed. So let's go to speed here, and I'm going to time stretch this guy real quick. All right, to about here. It doesn't have to be too accurate. Let's see. That's pretty good. All right, so what's going to happen is, again, if you zoom out here, we'll start from here. He's going to duck, and then he is going to roll. The next motion I want to happen is I want him to jump through the loop. So I'm going to press the tab here to go to the end. Let's go to our motion tab. And here's when we're going to do our first stunt, which is a roll forward. All right. So that looked pretty smooth. So you will notice that even though that he jumps and he goes through the hoop pretty good, he's going to hit his hands, and we'll tweak that again. We'll adjust that inside in part 3 for adjusting the motion to the prop. So, but overall the motion is pretty dead on. So we're good there. So now to fast forward this a little bit, because we still need to cover some time warp for the clips, I'm going to go ahead and load our next piece of the another scene here, which is basically a more strung together motions here, with some of the props moving already, and we are going to do the final part of the animation here, where he slows down in time as he spins. This part right here. So we'll concentrate on that next. All right. So now we have our scene loaded, and you will notice that most of his motions are there. Notice that some of the axes are hitting him, so we'll adjust the timing for the axis moving. And If we have time, I'll show you how to animate that that pillar there. And now we are going to notice here now that his motion here is pretty fast. All right, so let's select our character here, and let's go to that motion right there, which is the spinning part here. So that happens pretty darn fast. So let's go ahead and make that into a slow motion clip. So I'm going to go ahead and move this and zoom in here. Again, Alt mouse wheel to do that. Very, very handy feature. I use this all the time to concentrate on the area that I want to concentrate. Another thing is, now that we're going to be working a lot with the jump, this with the flip, let's use our markers in and out so that we don't keep going all the way to the beginning of the animation. So this actually works pretty nicely doing that, so that when we start and end, there we go. All right, so now it's looping there, and let's go ahead and zoom into that area again. Let's make sure it's somewhere in the middle, and zoom in and out. All right. Okay, so what we want to do here is, as soon as he starts running here, and he is about to do that first leap here, I am going to break the clip there, so we keep that speed constant. The next thing we're going to do here is, when he gets to the highest point of the jump, or the apex, we can go ahead and we're going to go ahead and break the clip right here. And then as he lands, we are going to break it one more time. About there, and right click, break. All right. So that looks pretty good right there. And now let's go ahead, and I'm going to start moving some of these clips around so that I have a little more space to expand these clips. So he starts running, and at this point, we're going to apply what is called a time warp. So let's go to time warp, and we are going to go from fast to slow. And fast motion in the curve editor is represented by the more vertical the line is, and slow motion is represented with the flatter the line is, the more horizontal it is. So look at the little curve over here. As you can see, it goes from fast to slow. So that's what we want. Let's go ease out. And look at the cellular distribution here. The cell distribution, you can see a lot more keys happening here, and a lot less keys happening here, which is actually the opposite. It's not that it's more keys. It is actually it's putting more keys together there, and then it's making the same key stretch out more the further it goes in time. So here it slows down, and then what we do in this one here, actually we'll do the opposite. We want to go from slow to fast. So let's apply a time warp there, and we want to go from slow. So this is the opposite. So remember, horizontal is slow, vertical is up. It's fast. So let's go and ease in for this. So by doing this, in essence, we're slowing it down, and then he comes down and comes back to, again, to regular speed. Now, we want to make this even slower. So what we're going to do here is, I am going to go ahead and merge these two guys. And then, now that we have this, I'm going to time stretch it. All right. So all we got to do now is make sure that this goes all the way over here to about half the speed. So let's move on this. We're going to move this a little bit more further out, and let's get this, give us a little more time towards the end. So let's time stretch it to half the speed, which would be 0.5. So Oh, we got to move this a little bit more to the side there. All right, so 0.5. Okay, so now we have our slow down. Beautiful, right? Super easy. Now you will notice here that there is a little bit of a hiccup here as it transitions from one to the other. So one cool thing you can do, and this is with the curve editor, which gives you a nice real advantage as well, having it, is actually you can see where the trouble is happening. And the way you can do this is you can actually right click on it and go sample motion clip, and I'm going to do a select parts. So this, all I want to do is sample the motion for the torso and go sample. This will give me some keys here and show me what's going on. And now we can go in the curve editor and we can see what's happening. Now you will notice here is where mostly is the motion is happening on the Y rotation. And I'm going to go ahead and auto fit that. And you will see here that as we flip around here, there is a very sharp drop in the curve. And this is where the little hiccup is happening here. So it's going very slow, and then there's a hiccup in motion there, and then it goes back to normal. So to smooth out this part right there, all we have to do here is we can just go ahead and just remove this guys from there. So now we have a nice smooth motion for the rotation. And now we can also go ahead and check out another thing that we got to check out here is the root node position. So let's go ahead and have that going on there. And let's check, because we're mostly moving in along the y-axis here. Let's go ahead and do a simple there. All right, so you will notice in here, right there, there's a drop in the animation. So which is exactly where the little hiccups is happening there. So what you can do here is to smooth that out. Again, you can just go ahead and remove those keys out of there. So it will give you a nice smooth transition all the way across. So once you fix that little problem, and by the way, you can use this little trick as well with motion capture. So it comes in very handy. So once you have that thing smoothed out, you can go ahead and reflatten all the parts. And now you have a nice smooth flip all the way across. All right, so now we have that going on, and we have this going on here. So now we can put all this clips together. This is obviously too much of a blend in here for a transition. So let's go ahead and get that in there, like so. And there you go. So we just did the slowdown for our character. Slow down, and boom, done. Okay, so now we're ready for part 3, which is putting it all together. All right, since we are in this area already, I feel like we can actually, why don't we animate the smasher? So I'll show you what I meant about being able to adjust the timing with the curve editor. So I'm going to go ahead and go to my preview here so that this character does not move. All right. The camera does not move, actually, not the character. And let's keep it over there. And actually, let's make our other camera invisible so we don't run into it when we pull out. There we go. It doesn't get in the way. Great. So let's go ahead and animate this. Let's give us a little bit more time in the front as well, so we can grab from the jump here into the avoidance of the smasher here. All right, so let's move this further back. All right, so he jumps from there. Well, maybe this is way too far back. let's make this a little shorter here. How about there? Let's see where he appears there. Let's go over there. That's good. So from there, he jumps, and we want the smasher to come down at that point. All right, so let's select this guy and make sure that we see the track for that. All right, now let's deselect that so it stays there in the track. So, and right now what we're going to do here is a very simple, unless this is the in, right? And that's the out, very good. So let's do it so that as he's about to land, the smasher just goes straight down. So let's put a key at the beginning here for the transform. So let's add a key. And then let's go about, let's see, it's 956. So let's go 1050 something, 56 also. So about 100 frames. It doesn't have to be perfect there. So let's set a key there. So you have both ups, and let's go halfway through to where we want the thing to come down. So we want it to come down about there when he puts the hand down. So let's go ahead and press W here real quick and move this guy down. Boom. And we are going to apply the transition. But look what happens when we apply that transition, like we did before in the with the curve editor. So let's go ahead and focus on the Z-axis precision here, and let's focus on these 3 keyframes. So let's go ahead and zoom in there. So, and let's get this handle shorter because it really. Let's undo that. And now I just want this handle to be smaller because it's because of the handle is being stretched out here. It's making the framing a little bit the out of frame much smaller than it needs to be. So another thing you can do also is this would have been actually much easier. You can instead of doing that, you can just go ahead and by using the mouse wheel, you can just zoom out of the and then pressing Alt and left click to pan, you can just delete this key. So, because we don't need that key. So now we do an out of frame there. And all right. Okay, so now let's apply the transition curve. So select the key. I'm going to right click on it, go to curves, transition curve. Again, you can do this as well in here in the timeline. And let's do that. Let's give it that in a bounce. But notice now that because we did that, and because when you apply a transition curve, it does it only to the left of that key, which is something you should really remember that. It does not affect the end of to the right. It doesn't affect to the right of that key. So because of that, the first bounce here is happening way sooner than we want it to. And this is something that you cannot see in the timeline. And this is why having the curve editor is really wonderful. So what we can do here is we can actually, because we can see the peaks and valleys, first let's go ahead and put the slider to the point in time where we want that first bounce to happen, which is there, right? So he lands, and this is where we want it to stop at the same time, or almost at the same time. It doesn't have to be perfect. And let's leave it at there. And now I'm going to go ahead and select the keys over here. And I'm going to press Shift so it moves only in one axis. And instead of up and down here, let's undo that. Let's go sideways. So let's go ahead and select those keys again. And I'm going to go sideways. Sometimes this gets a little finicky. So let's go ahead and come on. There we go. Nice. All right. So let's go to that valley there, like so. So that is when the first bounce is going to happen. So now if we play the animation, it will happen with the precise timing that we had before. So let's go ahead and bring this here so it loops a little. There we go. So he jumps in, and it happens right before he lands. So there, we just adjust that timing perfectly, and we make sure here that Let's select our character, make sure that his head doesn't get hit over there, which it doesn't. So great, that looks pretty good. All right, so we got that down. Super. All right. So the next thing we're going to do here is, so this is timing the prop to the motion. Now let's do the opposite. We are going to time the motion to the props. And so to do that, let's go to the beginning of the animation. Again, we're going to be doing this a lot with the curve editor because it comes in very handy because you can do this while you're playing the animation, which is really, really awesome. So I'm going to go ahead and go to my camera view here. And I'm going to select the camera here in the scene editor. And I'm going to go ahead and remove all animation because right now, the way I have it set up is the camera is linked to the root node of the character. So it will move automatically with the character. So this makes it pretty easy for the character to be framed all the time. All right. So as you can see here, our act, the first axe here, it's going to run right through him. So let's go ahead and adjust the timing for that. And we already know how to do that already. So super easy. We select the prop and make sure that we see it on the timeline, the curve editor here. And let's go to rotation, and it's the Y rotation here. And we have our curve right there. So let's go ahead and select the keys for that and do a translation so that as he walks, let's I'm going to press the shift key again and move it in time here, like so. So we want to make sure that at this point he is already cleared from the getting hit part. So he walks, clear, just barely missing him on the way back, which is pretty awesome right there. All right, so the next one is already timed properly, so we're not getting hit. But on this one over here, he gets hit right in the middle. So let's go ahead and let's move the curves for this guy again. We'll concentrate on the rotation only and do an out of it here. Let's make sure that actually it is the parent that is being selected, because remember, isolate is a grouped 2-axe combo there for the prop. So now let's go ahead and do an here is this animation is the one that goes full 360. So let me go ahead and select the preview here, and I'm gonna do a press A there so you can see what's happening here from another angle. So as I move through here, zoom. So this one is the full 360. And again, let's go to the camera in here. And we are going to quickly fix that so he doesn't get stabbed right through the motion. Again, doing our moving in time. So we're going to press shift and move this in time so that he avoids getting hit on the way and just barely missing that. So let's go ahead. 1, 2, just missed it. Perfect. All right. So now notice here that our character, he is going to get hit in the face by our ring. So let's go ahead and get the markers here so that we have just the part where he's about to get hit. So let's start from here. Boom, he gets smacked on the face, and that's something we don't want. So this is the time where we're going to move the motion of the character to the prop. So by using our motion layer editor here, let's go ahead and zoom in to this area here. We are going to go ahead and at this point, we are going to set a key by pressing reset. This will create keys for all the body parts. And then at the end, we're going to set a keyframe again. So again, if you want to go to the end of the clip and you want to go exactly to the end of the clip, select the clip and press tab. This will take you exactly to the end of the clip and set a key there. All right. So now we're going to go ahead to the part where he is going to get his face mashed in. Now, obviously, we want him to avoid this. So how we do it? Pretty easy. We're just going to use a little bit of IK here, and we're going to pull him back. We're going to pull him back like so. And we're going to take the head and we are going to rotate this like that. All right. So now that we have this, let's go ahead and see. All right. So we just avoided that, but it looks a little bit jerky. So let's smooth out this motion. Let's go ahead and go to the curve editor now. And we are going to select, let's start with the head or the neck first. No, actually, let's start first with the spine. So let's go ahead and do a search here for spine. And in here, you will see all of the rotations here. Let's do an out of fit. All right, so we have the rotation of the spines right here. And I'm going to select these keys over here. And notice again, what we want to do is not only have it avoid, but have it keep going backwards a little bit further. And to do that, I'm going to go ahead and by selecting these keys, I'm moving them down this way. Notice that I am pushing the motion down. So this gives us a little bit of extra curve or bend as it goes forward. So when we play this, it's smooth actually. See how much smoother that is? So we just gave it, in essence, a little bit of what is called follow through. And this is one of the advantages, again, of having the curve editor. It gives you so much flexibility. So we'll do the same thing for the head. So let's go ahead, actually the neck rotation. So I'm going to type neck here. So now we have our neck rotation. And mostly the one that's getting affected is our X rotation. So let's go ahead and zoom in on that. And again, let's give it a little bit of follow through there as well by doing that. So now let's go ahead and play the animation from the beginning. So, okay, so we have a little bit too much here. Let's make that a lot smaller to the end of this part. Let's see. So there to there. So let's stop it to about there. That's good. Okay, so notice how much smoother that is. So just by giving it a little bit of follow through, it doesn't make it jerky. So we do the same thing now with the next clip. So he's about to get hit here in the back of the head. So let's go ahead and go to the beginning of the clip again, Shift Tab. This will take you to the beginning of the clip. Let's go to modify motion there. And let's go ahead and set the keys for all of those. And then we go to press tab to the end and set a key there. And now we're going to go ahead and as it comes down and hits his head to about there. That's good. Let's see. Let's zoom in so we have a little finer control there. All right. So there. Okay, in here, we are just going to use a very simple push down here. So he is going to crouch and he is going to rotate his head down so he does not get hit by the ring. So now we have this. We just avoided the ring. And again, by doing this to all the motions, basically we got the perfect timing for that. All right, so last but not least, let's go ahead and we have a couple of extra minutes here to actually what we're going to do is we are going to take a look at the X as it comes towards us at the end of the clip here. And we're going to animate the head rotation so that it looks as he's as the axe comes towards our character, here, as he does this, we're going to have an axe come towards him, and he's going to keep looking at the axe and see it pass him, like barely miss him. So let's go to content here, and I'm going to bring in my animated axe already. So let's go to my prop, and let's bring in axe slow-mo face. So this is the axe that is going to hit his face. And you will notice here that the timing obviously is missed because the animation here is slightly different from my final animation. So all we got to do now is just animate the timing so that the axe comes on at the right time. So let's go ahead and obviously let's go ahead and select this guy's over here, which is the axe action here. And I'm going to go ahead and move him in such a way that when he jumps, the axe is about to hit his face there. He is almost getting hit, but now we are going to go ahead and use the curve editor to fine tune all of these things. All right, so let's switch our camera here. And let's go to preview, and I'm going to press A so we can preview on this side. So as you can see here, we are pretty darn close already. Let's see as we move forward. Yeah, he's getting clipped. So what we want to do is make sure he's not getting clipped by the axe right there. So what we need to do is move the axe down. So up and down is the Z axis. And one cool thing about being able to edit with the curve editor here is that you can select the curve, and then again, just imagine right now there's only 3 keyframes, and in this case I actually optimized it to only have 2. But you will notice that you can actually move the entire position of the axe simply by moving the curve up and down. So let's go ahead and shift move down. There we go. So now let's make sure that he clears that like so. All right. So imagine here you had 100 frames. If you had to do that in the timeline editor, you would have had to do those 100 frames, had to adjust the height for the 100 frames. In this, you can just do it in one gulp, which is awesome. Saves you a ton of time, just to do this kind of tweaks. And again, if we want this could be maybe a little too, does it touch the face at all? No, perfect. All right, so in there, we just timed the prop to the animation, and we're done. Okay, so this will conclude our tutorial. I hope you enjoyed it. And now we can jump on to the Q&A.
All
Kai?
right, awesome. Thanks, Chris. A little bit of Indiana Jones stuff going on there. So yeah,
Totally.
that was really good stuff. The curve editor is a super nice and powerful tool
Absolutely.
for iClone, yeah. And I'm actually still getting to know it myself, so this is like really useful for myself as well. Okay, so yeah, like Chris mentioned, we're going to do a Q&A session now. So if you have any questions that you want to ask either of us or related to animation, Reallusion, curve editor, whatever, feel free to put those questions in the questions section right now. Looks like we have a couple right now. All right, so we're going to do a quick Q&A. First one is Sean is just mentioning about the fires over there. So I guess you luckily you avoided the fires there in Burbank, right?
Yes. Oh my God. Oh my God. It was like 2 miles away from my house.
Yikes. That's crazy.
So yes, and the power kept going up and down. It was crazy.
Yeah, for any of you who are not aware, we had to cancel a previous webinar because there was a fire encroaching on Chris's place down in Burbank, and it was kind of touch and go there for a while. We didn't know whether or not the fire was going to consume his house or not, so we had to delay it. But thankfully, everything's okay now. It's kind of a Christmas miracle, I guess, right?
Yes, because if the wind changed, I could have lost my house. So yes, it was a miracle.
Yeah, that's great. Okay. Yeah, we're all glad you're okay.
Thanks.
Okay, so next question is from Sabine here. She says, doesn't have anything to do with the webinar, but I want to is it known that operating commands don't work with character creator characters? And more important, will this be fixed? I'm not sure, Sabine, what you mean the operate commands with CC characters. Maybe you can clarify that a bit for me. I'm not sure exactly what you mean. Maybe the perform motions or the right click menu. So maybe you can clarify that a bit, and we can give you a better answer. Um, do you know maybe what she's talking about, Chris? Or
Is he talking about like uh, uh, the persona? Is that
yeah,
what he's?
that's what I'm thinking about. But it says here operate commands don't work for CC characters, so I'm not sure what operate commands mean. We'll just wait for a clarification, I guess.
Okay. Yep.
So we'll just move on to the next question from Dave here. Okay. How might you animate noise onto or okay? So wait, the question just changed. Okay, so how might you animate away onto a character without a preset motion? For example, adding noise onto the root and then editing the amount of sway with the curve editor.
You mean by keyframing stuff, or?
Yeah, it seems like how might you animate a character without a preset motion? Yeah, I would
Yeah,
assume that's keyframe animation. Yeah.
if you're talking about the bouncing thing here, is
Mhm.
if this is what you're talking about, um, basically the without doing it with a preset. If that's what we're talking about, it's you have to keyframe it. There is no noise function if that's what he's asking.
Yeah, I'm not sure what the noise thing is, but I assume it's yeah the keyframe animation using the motion curve editor, or rather the curve editor with keyframe animation. Because I think you were using the motion clips for the character.
Right.
Yeah, I think that's pretty self-explanatory. Let's move on to the next one. Maybe Dave, you can
Okay.
clarify if you have any further questions. But okay, Sabine clarified her earlier question. Operate the commands of the Jeep or the scooter. Oh, okay. So I think what Sabine means is the characters. Some of them had like preset where they like enter the car and stuff like that. That was way back in the day.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. We don't really have that anymore, and I don't know that we intend to add that anytime in the near future. The automatic commands for like entering a car and stuff like that, or stuff like yeah, those were connected to man. It's been so long since I used that command. Those were commands from the Jeep, I think. So
Maybe someone can come up with a pack
yeah. I mean we're
to
we're
update them.
we're opening up the API for plugins. So anyone who's skilled in that aspect can is more than welcome to get involved with that. You can contact me if you are interested in creating a plugin. We can hook you up with the right resources. Okay, yeah. So Sabine, I don't think we intend to have that in the near future, as far as I know, for character creator characters. Um, okay, so a good question from Harold: is it possible to use the curve editor with physics motion?
I haven't tried it, but you would have to bake them first. So my guess is, oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, I've actually never tried that either. That's
Yeah, if you bake them, I would think you might be able to, but I am not too sure. So, should we do a little experiment? Do we have time for that, or?
Oh, sure. Yeah, we have a few questions, but let's. I'm kind of interested in that as well, and I think a lot of other people are because.
All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and just bring in this cube over here and bring it up. All right, make sure that we move this on top of this, and I'm going to remove all object animations there. I'm going to select this guy over here, select just this part. So, and make this go to modified. I haven't done this in a while, so bear with me. And
You and me both.
we want this to be static. And we take this guy here, add some physics, and press play. All right, so we got the physics going here. And now I'm going to remove the soft cloth because we are not using soft cloth here. So, whoa. All right. So we lost our, why does
What did you
doing
assign the
that?
bridge as? Oh, it's
Oh,
dynamic
it turned into dynamic by
bridge.
itself. Okay, so that is not what we want. So let's make sure that I'm going to go ahead and remove all animation here and make sure that it stays static here and do another removal animation, because if I don't do this, it's not going to go to the first frame. So now that's keyed on the first frame, so technically that should stay there. Okay, that's what it was. Okay, no big deal. All right, so next we want to go to our preferences, projects, and we want to, let's see. All right, so the motion technically is already baked right now.
I think you just have to go up to the
So,
top and disable the.
so
Yeah.
if I disable this now and I go this, boom, the motion's there. So I'm gonna go ahead and let's disable the physics. Let's see. Again, this is something I haven't tried before, so I'm very curious myself how this works out. So the motion's there. So, and the bounce actually looked, it needed a little more mass. So maybe we can play some with a curve editor now. So now we have this, and let's go ahead and make sure that that is the box, yes. And select all of our curves here. Make sure we have something here. So it's not there. So the motions are not there, but I think this is because this is set to the physics over here. So if we go over here, I wonder if we can actually sample the clip. And it looks like we were able to do so. So if we do this, no, it looks like it's, let me get back to that to you with you guys, because I am very curious to see. I haven't done this before, but it looks like it's possible right now. We can, you guys can totally see that the keys are here.
Mm-hmm.
So I should be able to, unless, okay, there's no, it's not letting me use that because it's
Interesting.
not turning them into transforms. So no, I don't think this is going to be possible. Not yet. I'm sure in the future it will be, but not yet. But if there is a way, I will post it on the forum for you guys. I'll find out for you guys.
Right on. Thanks, Chris. Yeah, so I guess we just figured that out. Neither of us really knew that you can't use the physics, or rather the curve editor with the physics animations, but that's good to know. I mean, and that's something that we can probably add on or improve in the future as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. You should be able to. I mean, because you can actually sample, you should be able to then translate that into the curve editor stuff. So,
Right on. Well, one step at a time.
yep.
We'll have probably curve editor for physics in the future, I imagine.
Yeah,
Um,
for morphs and for all the stuff. So,
yeah, yeah.
yeah.
We're just starting out here.
Mm-hmm.
Just released. Okay. Okay. So a question from Gerd about. I have a question about time warp. The
Yep.
motion is in slow motion, but what can I do with the cloth? It's still moving in real time, right?
Right. So, what's the problem?
I guess he's wondering if I think very similar question to what the
Oh,
previous question.
the cloth itself for
Yeah,
the
you can't really
well,
time warp the cloth. I guess we've.
what happens is you can bake the cloth motion, but again, the physics are going to not be correct.
Mhm.
But again, this is kind of experimental. You could try to do a two bake step. So the second it starts moving in slow motion, you can reduce the gravity of the cloth simulation and do a bake just for the part that it slows down. You can try that, and then what happens is by reducing the gravity, then the cloth is going to move slower, and then you bake that, and then you should be able to get that in slow motion, slower motion. I
Okay.
bet you anything that will work. I will do a test, and obviously not right now because we don't have the time. But actually, I will do a test for you guys and post it on the forum for you guys.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks. That's a good question there from Gerd about
Hmm.
the soft cloth in slow motion there.
Right.
Okay. A quick
Well,
question.
actually, if you look at here, it is because it is in slow motion. It kind of looks like it's moving slower because the motion is slower, but because of gravity is real time, it's not really slowing down the cloth too much. But like I said, if you reduce the gravity pull when the actual slowdown happens on the motion, I bet you anything if you do a two-step bake, you could probably nail it.
Okay. Yeah, that sounds like a good idea. That probably would work. Okay. Next question is from Beer. Awesome name, Beer. Uh, any imported any imported mocap can be modified with a curve editor. Is there a limited length?
Not that I know of. I haven't tried like 5 minute mocap session brought all in. But
Yeah.
I mean, I guess you could try linking a whole bunch of motions and merge them and then see what happens. But I don't see what I mean. I guess the limitation would be memory. I don't know.
Yeah.
But
Basically, yeah.
it,
To answer your question though, Beer, any mocap imported mocap motion can be used. Can We can use the curve editor on any mocap motion. As for length, generally you'd want to keep your projects, well, definitely under 5 minutes per project if possible. I don't know what's the longest project you've ever had, Chris?
no, I keep my I do it per shot by shot. So
Mhm.
I don't that way it's much easier to handle all the information. Otherwise, you end up with files that are gigabytes big,
Yeah.
and you don't want that. It's much easier to establish all your shots first, with very low resolution props. And then once you got all your shots established, you break them down on a shot by shot basis, and then you add whatever you need to add to the scene, for the final scene. So
Yeah.
it makes it more manageable. Having shorter clips makes it easier, faster renders, and then you don't have to worry about once you render one shot, then you don't have to worry about that shot anymore and move on to the next one. So
Yeah.
it makes it much more organized and a better workflow.
Exactly. Yeah, I think I'm thinking the A to Z iClone A to Z webinar we did earlier this month. That's probably one of the longest projects I've ever used. Like generally, I would try and set that up into a couple of different projects, for different shots, like
Mhm.
you mentioned.
Yeah, yeah. Because again, if something goes wrong with the file, at least you have your first few shots, that you already worked on done.
Mhm.
So nothing, that you don't have to start from scratch that way too. So again, this is like a safety issue as well. Keeping things shorter, and more manageable also means less troubles. If something goes wrong with one file, you don't ruin your entire animation. So
Right. Okay. Okay. And a good question from Sean here. Tapping into your expertise here. He says your decisions on timing are based on experience and feel. For storytelling, when should timing be natural and when exaggerated? What are your thoughts on that?
it's when you want to make a punchline, I guess. So again, it's all about how realistic or how cartoony, I guess, you want to make your animations, right? So exaggeration is the key to mostly comedy. So, but again, and follow through is more like realism, and so it's really it's up to you what kind of animation you're looking for. So this, we could have made this a little bit funnier by actually when we are over here, what if we instead of him avoiding completely this, he actually get his head knocked backwards by the ring. We could have done that and turn that into something funny.
Yeah.
Um, but or have his hair singed or something. So again, it's all the timing is all about what you want to get out of that story. So That's
Yeah, personally, I find like action timing to be a lot more simple and easier, straightforward, rather than comedic timing. Comedic timing is one of the most difficult things. I mean, if you watch a cartoon like even like SpongeBob or Ren and Stimpy or
hmm
something like that, just the timing that that they use there is it takes a lot of study. It takes a lot of experience. I'm not sure.
it's practice, practice, practice. Yes,
Yeah,
absolutely.
exactly. There's certain concepts that you're supposed to follow, but yeah, it comes down to practice and experience for sure. Especially with comedic timing, I find like action sequences to be fairly straightforward, but comedy, it has to be split second or right at the right time. It's very specific.
hmm Um, I don't know how much time we have left, but I wanted to show one more thing here for people that may run into this kind of trouble. And let me go ahead and bring that project one up again. And this about the what I call the grinder. And this is something that some people may or may not know is it has to do with parenting. Now, look at these this maze, spiky maze here, and how is this one's rotating, this one is not. And however, what you see here is if this is directly this prop here is directly parented to this stick. So, however, this one is not, and this is actually it has um, a built in between dummy prop. So what I did is I actually put something in between because if you try to rotate this particular child of this parent, which is a stretched cylinder, what's going to happen is if you rotate that, you are going to get some serious skewing happening, like so.
Hmm.
All right. So in order to avoid that, what you do is you create a dummy prop, you align it to the whatever prop you want to rotate, and then what you do is you attach the dummy prop to the cylinder, and then you attach the mace to the dummy prop, and this will avoid the skewing of your prop. So I don't know if people knew about that or not, but it's a very, very helpful tip there. Even when you're doing some modeling and parenting stuff, so
Very
using
clever. Yeah.
primitives. So
Great. Okay.
anyway, I thought that was a pretty cool tip there,
All right.
and which it was fun because at first I was going like, what in the world is going on with this thing right here? It was stretching out like crazy, and I was like, oh man, what is going on? So that was the problem. Is
Yeah, you always come across these kind of problems when you're working on different
mhm,
projects, and it's always nice to know a workaround.
yep,
So thanks for that. That's
yep,
pretty informative for you guys. If you ever find yourself in that kind of situation. Okay, we got a couple of questions here that are related. One's from
okay,
Chris, and the other one's from Marjan.
okay,
Chris is mentioning, could you do a webinar about that process, shot by shot, starting by a low res and working up to the final shot? And I think that's pretty much what we've done in our iClone A to Z webinar. We started off with building the scene and customizing the props and everything. We got to like animation, both body and facial animation, and then Chris ended off part three with the scene refinement and making the lighting and everything beautiful. So for Chris, if you're interested, you can check out the A to Z webinar for iClone. We do have that. Part one is free. Part two and part three are paid webinars. I believe they're about $10 each. And we will be able to send you guys part two and part three. I think I'll have to consult with the webinar people, but you can email me if you're interested in watching all of those videos. You can email me. My email is kai@reallusion.com. That's KAI at reallusion.com, and we can probably get you set up with the paid part two and part three, or you can just wait until we're probably going to do it again. I imagine January or February. It's a very very popular webinar, a 3-part webinar where the first part we do the scene construction and customization, prop import, and everything. Part two we do the facial and body animation, and part three is the lighting and material refinement. So yeah, email me, kai@relusion.com or developer@relusion.com, and we can help you get hooked up with those webinars.
Yeah, and also if you guys are also interested on how the particle stuff was done here, just tell Reolution you would like a webinar on that. So
Yeah, I imagine we'll
with these
probably,
guys.
most likely, we'll be doing a webinar on particle popcorn effects particles for sure. I have no doubt.
So
Yeah, if you guys have any requests about webinar topics, make sure
mhm.
you put that in the feedback form that we're going to email out to you guys, because we're always looking to help our user community with new topics and whatever they have trouble with.
Yep, absolutely.
And like Chris mentioned, he's also on the forums as well. There's a
Hmm.
lot of people on the forums that can help you out as well. Okay, one more question here from Eris. What does Curve Editor work with morphs?
Not yet,
Hmm.
not yet.
Right.
But
So
uh, I heard a rumor that it will be, and that's one of the things that they're working on right now.
a
So
little birdie told you, eh?
yeah, a little birdie told me that they're working on it because I asked that myself because that obviously is very useful as well. So yes.
Yeah. So I think physics and morphs in the future
Hmm.
we'll be able to use the curve editor with those. We're working on it.
Yeah.
These
Hmm.
things take time. All right. I think that's all the questions we have from everyone here. So thanks a lot, Chris. That was
All right.
awesome, really
Thank you,
informative
guys.
webinar. And if you guys didn't get enough of it, you can join us again in a few hours here. We're going to be doing one for our
Oh,
American friends.
actually, I have one more tip, and this is curve editor related. I don't know if people have time, if they're okay with it.
Sure, yeah,
Would
we
they
got
be
it. We got a few
interested?
minutes. Yeah, go for
Yeah. Okay. So this is another tip here that is very useful, and it has to do basically with props and the orientation that they're in. So you will notice here that if I do an animation, for example, and I will do this, it will be much easier if I just I'm going to go ahead and uh, make sure that we have the curve editor on for precision here. And is things work great when you're working in 90-degree angles. So if I have an animation, for example, that goes from here, let's make sure that our loop, it's much smaller here. So, all right. So yeah, if I have an animation that goes from to 120, it's fine there. And let's go frame 120. And I am going to translate this. Make sure that is the full parent. And I'm going to translate this like so. Okay, so this works great. And what happens is because we're a 90-degree angle here, we can go ahead and move it in X. Let's do an out of fit for that curve there. And I don't know if you guys can see this menu here or not, but I'm trying to move this out of the way.
You mean the go
All
to
right.
webinar menu?
Yeah, the go to webinar menu.
Yeah,
Can you guys see
nobody can
that?
see that. No, no.
Okay, so basically I can select this key and just move it in value, and of course I can do this. I can move it in the X direction, right? So that works great. But this is because we are working already in a 90-degree angle based relative to the world. So what would happen, okay, if instead in this part over here, and let's go ahead and where is that X? It just flew away. Okay, oh, we just went way out of screen. All right, so let me just bring this back. So this is like we went all 800 units all the way to the right. So let's go ahead and bring this back so that when we come here to the end of the animation, we still can see the motion. Okay, so this works great, but look what happens now. If I wanted, for example, let's go ahead and I'm going to just delete this keyframe here at 120. And I'm going to rotate this like so. and then I'm going to rotate this like there. And now I'm going to translate this on the local axis of the X, like that. All right. So we just did a translation there. So technically, if we move in X on the curve here, we should be able to see the X moving diagonally in space, right? However, look what happens now. If I go over here and select the X position axis, and I start moving my X in X, look, it's not moving in local, it moves in world coordinates. So if you try to tweak a motion that is oblique to the 90 degrees, it doesn't line up to the world, then your motions are going to be skewed. They're not going to work the way you expect them to work, right? So how can you get around that? So a cool trick you can do here is with our trusty dummy prop. So if you actually create a dummy prop, so I'm going to go ahead and just create a box, and I'm going to move it. I'm going to scale it proportionally so it's not too big, but the key is proportional so it doesn't skew. And then I'm going to right click and align this to my X. So align to the X, and let's do this in X, Y, and Z. All right, so now that is what we want. All right, so now that's lined up, and I realized that I have a key for that particular prop, so I'm going to go ahead and remove all animation. So make sure that at frame 1 it's at the correct spot. So now if I want to skew the X but keep being able to move on local, so actually one thing we got to do is make sure you select the X and you attach that to the dummy prop. So select the X, do an attach to the dummy prop. All right, so now we select the dummy prop. And now let's do the same thing. We're going to skew the animation. We are going to make it go this way, that way. And now, if we want, for example, our X to move, I can go ahead and go local on the X. I'm going to select my X here. Make sure we select the X there. And now I'm going to go ahead and move it this way. Actually, let's go. We'll get a moving time first. So let's go to 120 and move in time like so. All right. So now if I select the key there and move this, notice now that you're moving locally.
Huh.
So this way you can skew your whatever prop you have and still retain the local translation rotations, which is very, very useful while using the curve editor. So that's a pretty nifty tip right there.
Yeah,
So,
definitely.
because at first I was going like, oh my God, so if I have something skew, I can never animate something with the curve editor. I can't tweak it. So yes, you can. If you do it this way, you can. So that's the trick right there.
Awesome. Yeah, I think that's a super useful tip for you guys who are using the curve editor. That's definitely something that is essential to know. I think that's fairly essential if you're going to be doing that sort of stuff.
Yep.
Yeah. So thanks for that, Chris. That's an excellent little tip there. Okay, I think we're about out of time though. We're a little bit over time, so I'm sure everyone appreciated it. It doesn't really, it's all good. But yeah, so we're going to be doing this again in a few hours, and as always, we're recording this webinar, so I'll be sending you guys the link and everything for that. And any inquiries about the A to Z webinar, you can email me again, kai@relusion.com. But yeah, for now, I think that's about it. I think we're going to sign off now. So thanks again, Chris, for everything. That was an awesome webinar. Very informative. And yeah, thanks everyone for attending. Hopefully you learned a lot.
Thank you guys.
And make sure you check out our forums as well, forum.reallusion.com, and the curve editor. I provided the link in the chat window there. Yeah, so I think that's it. And Chris, I'll see you again in a few hours.
All right.
To everyone else, I bid you adieu. And yeah,
Okay,
we'll
very good.
end up the webinar there. So thanks, guys.